My dear friends, it's Friday again, and I'm here to talk with you, to discuss other things, to review other subjects. And every week, I'm very excited and I'm very grateful that you are uh, getting to tune in and watch the show and listen to what I have to say. And hopefully, that's a very important part of this whole message. Hopefully, you're going to share it with other people. Because the more we know about it, the more people know about it, the better off we're going to be. Because this is, after all, has to do a lot with numbers. So in today's program, you will have to excuse me because I'm going to be reading some of the information that I have because they're numbers and numbers and numbers, but they show so well. They illustrate so well. Just like a good picture shows a lot of things, this gives a very good idea of what we're looking at. Today, I have a different subject. I have a different subject that brings me back uh, to the same situation, to the same position, to the same everything. I read about, I don't know, probably 20, 25 medical articles every day, every morning, and just to see what's happening, what the medical world thinks of this or the other, what new things come about, in order to share them with you, in order to create a blog, in order to create these videos, in order to share it with people. That's the reason why I review all this information. And when I read all this information, I come back to the same point uh, over and over and over again, which means there's a lot that has to be right with the teachings that we are sharing among us. You know, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez. I'm the medical director of Biocare Hospital and Wellness Center, and I'm here through the courtesy of Truth Be Told Radio Network. And every Friday night, you can tune in and listen to these programs, show these videos, or if you miss it on Saturday night, you can tune in. Excuse me, Friday night, you can tune in on Saturday morning. Everything is at Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. on Fridays, 9:30 a.m. on Saturdays. But if you miss all this information or whatever, all you have to do is go to Spotify and search for Truth Be Told Radio Network. Also, at the same time, we're just in about every single social media you can think of. So if you are on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, if you want to watch videos on YouTube, whatever is your favorite way of modern communication, there we are. And the world has changed a lot. We used to read magazine, we used to watch the news, we used to read the papers. I think that's history now. It has taken some time to adapt. And those of you that are my age or about my age, you will remember the times where all this seemed like impossible. But in today's environment, we can share a lot of information. And that is a big advantage because something that I'm telling you today is something you can share with the people you love, with the people you work with the people you go to church with. In other words, you can share all this information and try to make a better world. Because if we're healthy, if we survive the health challenges that we're meeting in these times, if we become more resilient in terms of how we're going to respond to illness and how we're going to recuperate from it, we're going to be a much better society. Because after all, life is to have a Sunday barbecue with the people you love, to make a trip with that person, that very special person in your life, to raise your children and go to their graduations and to their weddings. That's what life is about. And the healthier we are, the better off we're going to be. Not only that, but the healthier we are, the more chances we have to be successful And if we're successful, we can achieve a lot of the things that we want, and we can share that well being with everybody around us. That's why I really ask you to try to tune in, to listen to other programs, to go to the blog, to learn ways to help yourself. And in today's program, I'm going to talk about something that worries us a lot. Back in the mind of every one of us, of course, we're always thinking, what if I get cancer? What if I get in a terrible accident? What if? Okay. And for that, we have insurance. You say, okay, I'm going to buy a life insurance in case something happens to me. My children, we have a way to deal with it, or my family. Okay. So that in a way we have kind of figured it out. We have it in our minds, but we have something in the back of our minds that tell us if this happens, you're going to do this or you're going to do that. But there's a part of us that's very important. And when that part of us fails, we're not going to die as you could in a car accident or as you could in a deadly disease. No, you're going to be living, quote unquote, you're going to be alive, but you're not going to be here anymore. I'm talking about dementia. And dementia is something that worries everybody. In the back of the mind, we have kind of a mechanism of defense not to bring it forward because it's kind of anguishing, it's kind of problematic. And most of us don't even have a plan. Why? Because we don't think of it. I mean, I know people that build shelters underground and put groceries and water and everything. What if there is a bomb? Well, I run to the shelter. What if there's a tornado? I run to the shelter. But with dementia, we don't have a plan because we don't think of it. And when we see somebody that's fading into dementia, we all feel sorry, yet we cannot start crying because we haven't lost that person. We kind of lose you, but you're not gone. That's the problem. That's why the dementia is so dire, so important to think of. And once again, that's important thing. I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't have an answer for that. But once again, we can prevent it. You know, if you go to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and you say, I'm going to look about high blood pressure, I'm going to read about diabetes, I'm going to read about cancer, a heart attack, anything, you go back to the same situation each and every time. You go back to a situation in which that disease that produces a lot of anguish, that we are afraid of, etc., is preventable. In other words, that if we did what we have to do, if we treat our bodies the way we have to treat them, if we become a little bit more responsible about how we're going to deal with our daily life, then we have about 40% chances of skipping it all together. That's right. You can prevent cancer and Alzheimer's and high blood pressure and everything. And every time you read the literature, every time you read medical articles, every time you go to any source, and probably one of the most important sources today is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, because they added that word to the institution, okay, and prevention. When you read that, you see that yes, you can prevent. And it gets even more interesting because the most deadly diseases in today's America are diseases that are self inflicted. 7 out of 10 people are going to die of a self inflicted disease. And it could be cancer, it could be diabetes, it could be a heart attack, it could be a stroke, it could be high blood pressure, it could be kidney disease, could be Alzheimer's, could be anything that we, in a way, uh, were creating, were helping to develop. See, I can tell you, for example, that one of the most common surgeries nowadays is gallbladder stones. And gallbladder stones are preventable. We make them. I tell you many times examples of my daily medical life. You see, I have a young guy, not even 40, who develops jaundice and problems, and we're looking at him, and you wonder what it is. We send the laboratory, and it turns out that it has an obstruction of the flow of bile, an important obstruction, because the guy is now jaundice and having symptoms and liver problems. Liver function tests are all abnormal. So we say, oh, this is such a young guy to have all these problems. You say, well, we have to do laboratory and an ultrasound and everything. And there comes a guy, a doctor, a young doctor too, and he says, you don't have to be a doctor. Take a look. Look at the guy. The guy is very fat. The guy seems to be toxic. The guy, look at his tummy. He has a gallbladder disease. Sure enough, we do an ultrasound, we do whatever we have to do, and yes, he has something that we call bile mud, which is a very thick bile that accumulates in the bile ducts and blocks it. In other words, you didn't even have to be a doctor to make that diagnosis if you knew a little bit about what's happening around us. So, with that in mind, I invite you to look around and see everybody and see who's sick and who's healthy. And you're going to see that's important. Do it at the supermarket. Look at people and then look at what's in the cart. They go well together. So if we start doing that, we're going to start working on prevention. Don't go anywhere. We have to keep talking about dementia. My friends, this is a very important day because we're talking about dementia. And I say it very important because we all are afraid of it. We all fear its consequences. We're gone and we're not. We're not any longer here, but we're still alive. We still have to be fed and taken care of. So it's kind of a sad story. And I don't have to tell you. Everybody knows. So you say, I'm going to have, if I ever have dementia, what is my plan? What is what I'm going to do? And I want to turn all this around and tell you, first of all, you do not have to have dementia. You can prevent it. And it's not only me, it is the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, Georgia, which is probably the most important institution in the subject of statistics and numbers and everything, that is telling us that 40%, not only of dementia, but most of the chronic degenerative disorders that are killing Americans today have a 40% chance of prevention if we just play our cards in the right way. So there's something that really makes me want to reach, want to talk to you, want to get in your life and sit in your dining table or in your uh, porch and talk about it. And that is that of all the medical information that we get every day, we get the somber news of chronic degenerative disease killing seven out of 10 Americans. You say most Americans are dying from what? From self-inflicted diseases. In other words, we paid to get sick. We paid for booze, we pay for cigarettes, we pay for bad foods, we pay for bad lifestyles, we pay for everything. We pay for TV channels so we don't have to get up from our sofas and just watch program after program or game after game or play games one way or another. Just sit down, whatever free time we have. So sedentarism and bad diets and bad lifestyles and eating too much sugar and eating too much fats and eating too much flour and eating too much salt, all that together is killing us. And even though many of us instinctively know it, we don't do anything about it. What, what can we do? Well, we can prevent it. Dementia is a very sad disease because we are, first of all, beginning to lose our cognitive ability. You see, I'm going to allow me to read a few things because I want you to see this. In 2019, the Center of Disease Control created a group that's behavioral risk factor surveillance system. What is this? This is an organism that looks at people's lifestyles and see what behavioral attitudes can lead you to health and which of them can lead you to trouble. And that is very important because right in the beginning, they took 162,000 people and they followed them, and they were 45 age or a little bit older. We're not talking about 80 years old. We're talking of 45. Any of us that has passed that number know that 45 is young. You're very young. You're at the prime of your life. You see, yet a percentage of them started to show this cognitive deficit. In other words, you begin to lose it, colloquially speaking. You begin to forget facts, figures, situations, people's faces, the book you read, a movie you saw. You begin to lose those things. It might need a little bit of an effort to identify it, but now you don't remember things as well as you did. And again, if you're about my age, you know it. You don't remember things just like that. There was a time in my life where I could have 10, 15 different patients in one day, and I would remember the names of those people. Today I have more problem. I can see your face, I can see the patient, but I forgot that is she Emily or is she Ruth? And then I say, okay, remind me your name. I'm Sarah. Oh, sure, Sarah. You see, and it's nothing to do with the person is more important or less important. It's just that you do not store information as well as you did before. And that's the beginning of the problem. So, if you notice that anyone that's around you, then we have to start looking for what could be happening. And you know what's the most striking thing to me? Well, not striking. I think it should be just naturally understood. It makes sense. It makes sense because we have a body that was created in perfection and given an environment from which we were going to nourish and thrive. And we have changed all that. So we're not who we used to be. And it used to be that 100 years, 200 years ago, we were afraid of foreign things, infections. Infections were the big killers. Infections killed our children, our young ones, our middle age, and our older people. So when we conquer infections with antibiotics in the middle of the 20th century, 1940s, 50s, then we thought, oh, we're going to live forever. But then we found a huge new enemy, chronic, degenerative, inflammatory diseases, because the way we were beginning to live. We threw a party when we conquered infections. We threw a party. It's, oh, we can live our lives. We can be happy. We can have our cake and eat it too. And painfully to discover that that's not the case, that we have to obey certain rules. And when we break them, we can go in any direction of these degenerative diseases. We can go to diabetes or hypertension or to a stroke. See? And when you read about prevention, it happens that what prevents one prevents the others, not one more, all of them, because all of them have the same cause. So when we talk about choosing food, exercising, obesity, high blood pressure, etc., we're talking about the same animal with a different appearance. So it's important that we start preventing. Choose one. You want to prevent dementia, you're going to prevent heart attacks. You want to prevent diabetes, you're going to be preventing high blood pressure. You want to prevent whatever, you're going to prevent something else or several diseases at the same time. So I think to me that's a winner. That's not bad not news at all. That's a winner. If I start doing something because I'm afraid of dementia, because I'm afraid of Alzheimer's, because I'm afraid of this condition, I might be helping a lot of many other things on the way. Now, let me tell you, and I promise I will put this on our social media for those of us that are gracious enough to follow and to read. I'm going to tell you what are the three most important risk factors for dementia. Okay, one is obesity. The second is sedentarism. Okay, and the third one is high blood pressure. So if you have any of those three, watch out. You have to start dealing with yourself. You have to start looking at what I eat, how I might. Now, let's think for a second that every time we talk diabetes, you say obesity. Every time we say Alzheimer's, we say obesity. Every time we say high blood pressure, we say obesity. Every time we say, and even with COVID, if you were obese, that was bad news. Now, it is not a discriminatory thing. It is not that if you're fat, you're ugly. We're not saying that. All I'm saying, and just please take 2 seconds and reflect on this. If you are obese, your obesity tells me a story. And that story is you do not take care of yourself. You don't know how to take care of yourself. Nobody helps you to take care of yourself. Nobody taught you to take care of yourself. So you started doing the wrong things from childhood. What, what are we going to be doing? We're going to think of obesity not as a symptom, not as an appearance, not as any of that. We're going to think of obesity as a storyteller of wrongdoing in terms of our lifestyles, our food choices, our sedentarism. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Because if you begin to understand all these, you will begin to find simple answers to the problem. Obesity is your enemy. So I have to make sure, number one, that I control this problem, and second, that I train my children well. Because it's very difficult. We all know it. It's very difficult to control obesity once you're obese. But it's a lot easier to prevent it by raising children that love good foods. I'll come back with you in a minute. My dear friends, I'm Dr. Rodrigo Rodriguez, Medical Director of Biocare Hospital and Medical Center, and I'm coming to your lives, to your sphere, through generosity of Truth Be Told Radio Network. We are broadcasting this program every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we repeat the program at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time again. You can go to Spotify, which is something that, wow, still amazes me. You can go to Spotify and search for Truth Be Told Radio Network and listen to the show. I'm old enough to know that watching something like this was a matter of running because it was 7:15. You didn't want to miss the show. You turned on the radio and then you sat and listened to the radio show you wanted to listen. And then if something happened in a different time zone, too bad, because it was too late or too early and all those things. In today's environment, they don't care where you live. They don't care what your time zone is. They don't care anything. You go to Spotify, you search for Truth Be Told Radio Network, and you can listen to us in Europe, in Asia, in South America, no matter where. But of course, I hope you in America are listening. I hope you are joining our group and you're sharing all this information with the people that you love. Because believe me, this is information that comes out of my heart, because I have been a doctor for over 50 years. 50 years of suffering. If you think that being a doctor is fun, think again. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and say, what did you think when you decided to be a doctor? You should have been a cruise director, because I love to deal with happy people. I love people that are dancing and chanting, etc. I should be in a cruise ship and working with people and bringing them to aerobics and taking them to sing and making a contest on ice sculpture, something like that. That is what I like. But no, I have to see people in some of the most difficult times of their lives. Whether you're the patient, but unfortunately, if you have been a caretaker if you have lost anybody that you love, those people are very important too, and there's a lot of suffering with them. So we have to say, uh, what can I do? And yes, having the opportunity of building up from the ground up a hospital that was devoted to make it happen the way I thought it should be, to create a group of people that along with me thought that medicine was missing something very important, which was patient care, biocare. How can you help someone that's sick if that person cannot eat, if that person is not fed, if that person is depleted in important nutrients and minerals and vitamins? No, you can't. If you have a wilted plant at home, I mean, the first thing I would do is probably look at the soil and see if it's well watered or not. If it's over water, I'm going to do something to drain the excess water. If it's dry, I'm going to water it. I have to begin with that. I cannot begin with chemicals and adding ammonium or phosphorus or whatever to bring it back to life. I have to begin with the basics. And then I say, well, this plant is yellow, it's getting too much sun. Or the contrary, this is a sun plant, what's doing indoors? You see, that's biocare. Biocare is thinking of caring something that's alive. And that could be your pet, that could be your house plant, that could be your children. Children were given to us with the supreme responsibility of raising them up and healthy. See, they were not given to us to fill them up. Sometimes I get the feeling that that's what we do. We take children to a fast food joint and we just say, fill them up. And there goes the bad food, the bad fats, the sugar, the soda pop, etc. And of course, they come out with a tummy this big that over the years is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we have what? A sick person. That's why I'm telling you, when you see an obese person, that is something that tells me a story. It's telling me a story from the time this child was born. I'm going to give you another very important hint now that we're talking about dementia. Dementia happens very frequently, or more frequently than normal, in people with depression. Got it? People who are depressed have a higher tendency of developing dementia. And once again, it's not that depression will produce the dementia, it's that depression is telling me story. What story does depression tells me? Well, if we think of depression, is the lack of certain brain chemicals that we need a lot, like serotonin. You see? And there are other important substances that make me happy, that make me emotional, that allow me to function very well and go to sleep and repair and etc. etc. Where are those substances being created? In the gut. That's why I tell you that to me depression tells me story. If you don't have a healthy gut, if you don't have a healthy intestinal flora, you're likely to be depressed. Your depression is going to bring sedentarism. And the lack of these substances and all these together is going to create dementia in the long run. That's why depressed people have more dementia than people without it. Not because depression brings, but it tells a story. It tells me something that has gone wrong in that life. That person was very possibly, I'm going to tell you what distorts your intestinal flora. To begin with, a C section. If you were not born through the vaginal canal, you miss the chance of creating a healthy intestinal flora in the first place. Second, not being breastfed. You know, mother's milk contains a lot of things to help the intestinal flora develop. Actually, there are over 200 nutrients in breast milk that are not digested by the baby. And you say, why does mother milk has so many things the baby is not going to digest? Because the bacteria in the baby's gut are going to use it. So they're going to develop a healthier, stronger intestinal flora. And then that intestinal flora will start creating the serotonin, the oxytocin, all those good hormones, brain substances that help the brain to develop, function well, and be happy. Serotonin has been called the happy hormone. Serotonin is one of the things you develop when you have refined sugar or coke. You choose. And I'm talking about cocaine, not the other stuff. I'm talking about cocaine. Sugar and cocaine have similar responses in terms of well-being. Why? Because they produce larger amount of serotonin. By the way, talking about those things, I think it's also important for you to know that chocolate doesn't induce the formation of serotonin, but it blocks its destruction. So when we take chocolate, serotonin is going to last longer in the blood and we're going to feel better. But again, you have to choose your chocolate 70% cacao, not sugar, and buy from responsible producers, from ethical suppliers. Don't buy it in the grocery store. Choose your foods. If you start choosing your foods, if you start choosing your lifestyle, a lot of things are going to happen. So that's why it's important to see how all these things are tied together. You see, the obesity, the depression, the development of the intestinal flora, etc. All these things go so well interconnected that there's only one answer. And the answer is in the beginning. We have to move, we have to work, we have to do physical activity, we have to get sunlight, we have to live, we have to choose our foods. And when we do all that, and very important, remember that I'm always insisting in the next generation. Very important. If I train my children to learn all these rules, I'm going to have healthy children. I don't want to have children that are obese, that are going to die of a heart attack, that are going to be diabetic or anything like that, because I don't want to go to my children's funeral. And that is unfortunately what's beginning to happen in America. We go to funerals where the deceased is a person that was in their 40s or 50s and their parents are still alive. I don't even want to think what it is to lose a child. But so much worse if we help in the process. God knows when we have to part. So, but if we start helping our children to be sick and suffer, that's not the way to go. You're not fulfilling your responsibility. You're not biocaring your children. The same effort, the same money, the same time, the same everything you use to keep your healthy pets or your healthy plants, it's the minimum you have to do for your children. Follow me. Join me. We have a long way to go, but believe me, it's going to be very, very fruitful. I'll be back with you. We have been talking today about dementia. But when we talk about dementia, we have been talking around so many more things. We're talking about chronic degenerative disease. We're talking about obesity. We have been talking about lifestyles. We have been talking about biocaring, showing our children what to do, taking care of people around us, taking care of us. You see, this is like the airplane mask. They always tell you when the masks drop, take the nearest one and start breathing oxygen before you help others. Why is that? Have you ever wondered? Because you just have few seconds without oxygen before you lose your consciousness. So if you try to help somebody, you might lose your conscience and then you will not be able to help the child or an elderly. Neither will you be able to take care of yourself. However, if you take the nearest mask and you start breathing oxygen, you're going to be in good shape. So you'll be helping this passenger, the crew, everybody. It's the same here. If you start biocaring yourself, you're going to be able to help so many others, and you're going to be able to share the word. And people will ask you, "Oh, you look so good. How do you do it?" And then you can do the same thing I do every day. Start telling them the whole story of how we were created and how responsibly we should be raised and cared for. You can tell them about Biocare. You can say, I learned a new verb, which is Biocare, which means taking care of something that's alive. And that could be my plant, that could be my pet, but that could be myself or my family. Now, a very good friend of mine, he always told me, Rodrigo, one of the big problems is that whenever you buy anything, whenever you get anything, you get an owner's manual. So you know that after 10,000 miles, you have to change the oil. And at so many miles, you have to rotate the tires. And then every morning or every so often, you check for the fluid in the brakes, or the fluid in the antifreeze, or the fluid in the battery. I know. You're going to say he's very old because we don't check batteries anymore. Well, actually, none of the things I have said. Now we have electric cars. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say is that you were given a written book telling you how to take care of yourself. Many people don't have it. Many people don't understand it. Or many people don't have the time. I have to admit it. We are so pressed for goals and deadlines in today's environment that many of us don't have the time, the effort, the energy, or even the know-how on how to do things. That's the time to turn to Biocare Hospital. That's the time to pick up the phone and make a call. That's the time to ask. And we're on every single social media. And we will answer every single question. No strings attached. You don't have to pay anything. It's my pleasure to see, and my goal would be to see a much healthier world. Again, I'd love to be that cruise ship director instead of being the medical director of the hospital. But to get to that point, I have to make sure that you are going to be very healthy and preventing deadly diseases. So That's the time to turn to Biocare. And I have, and I thank God every day for it. Every time I have a patient that comes to the hospital and says, I'm going to be here for your fantastic trade off. I'm going to give you 10 days of my life because I know you're going to give me 10 years of well being. Because that's the deal. You come 10 days to the hospital, to Biocare, it's not a hospital. You're not going to have, it's not the typical environment of a hospital. It's different. Our kitchen is 7 times the size of our pharmacy. And you're going to find people that are going to be helping you to do basic things like cleansing, hydration, eating, palatable, healthy food, and learn how to take care of yourself. I mean, you are coming to a center that devotes itself 24/7 to biocare. So you're going to learn how to do it, you're going to learn how to function, you're going to learn how to everything, how to plan your life from now on. And on those 10 days, you're going to be uh, getting targeted nutrition, targeted supplementation. We're going to boost immunity. You are going to diminish. We're going to bring it down. And you can see it in 24 hours. In 48 hours, you're going to see how inflamed you were. People don't realize. But after 2, 3 days in the hospital, they say, Doctor, I can move my fingers. I can get up the chair. I can move around. I can go upstairs without any problem. And my joints are completely different because inflammation is going down. And not only they're getting better, they're learning how to do it. Okay, so let's learn to do that. And the best thing you can do is plan a 10-day health getaway at Biocare. You can say, okay, I can do it. I'm not. If I ask you, do you know anybody that tried a diet or a health thing that was successful? And probably all of us know somebody. Now, if I ask you, successful for how long, there's the problem. They were successful for a month, for 3 months, but then they regained the weight, they regained the problems, and they got sick. Why? Because they really didn't know how to do it. And I don't blame you. I'm not being critical when I say you don't know how to do it. I'm being objective. If I have a tax problem, I go to my accountant. Yes, I understand how to pay taxes. I understand that depending on my income, etc., etc. I know all that. Yet I don't know the fine print. I don't know the little things. I don't know anything about it. So I have an accountant that will tell me, we're going to do this, and this goes on this category, this goes on the other, blah, blah, blah. This is what you have to pay. I write a check. And that's the same thing here. You do not necessarily have to know, but you have to go somewhere where you're going to not only regain your health, you're going to get back on the right track, but also you're going to learn what to do. That's why I tell you, you give me 10 days of your life, I'm going to give you 10 years of well being. Because in that time, you're going to learn. You can go to the kitchen, you can see, we have many people that say, I love this thing, how you do it. Okay, welcome, come to the kitchen. I'll show you. Even if you're not any of our patients, feel free to ask for any recipes. We periodically publish things that we think are very useful, very simple to do, and helpful. Why? Because we are obsessed with Biocare. I would love everybody to look around and see how you feel environment and in my environment, how strong I am, how much stamina I have, how well I sleep, how well I perform, how well I do this or the other, because I want to live, well, whatever God tells me to live, but I want to feel well. I want to be performing. I want to be enjoying. And dementia is not definitely the answer. So, what do? I turn to a professional team like Biocare. Show me. I'm going to be 10 days. And I tell you, I tell nowadays, I tell many of my patients, why don't you, once you get here, you're going to take a selfie every day? Because you're not going to believe me when I say you look good. But when you look at this series of pictures, in just 10 days, you're not going to believe it. And then is when I tell you, you see the inflammation that has gone down. When you see how your complexion reflects the fulfillment of good nourishment. When you see all these things, and then you say, okay, now all I have to go to do is get the teachings, learn from those teachings, go back to my life and learn how to do it. This week I had a long conversation with a couple that were here, and they said, Doctor, we have so limited time. And then I showed them how to do a week's food in a very simple way. And they did it, they loved it, and they said, Doctor, we had now all our glass containers. So we have string beans here, mushrooms here, eschalots here, potatoes here, everything. So now we can choose our protein, our chicken, our fish, and everything was cooked in the same container at the same time. And that helps a lot because people say, I don't have time to cook. Well, you don't have time to cook every day, but you might have a day off. And in that day off, if you just give me a couple of hours, I'm going to show you how to prepare everything for the whole week in one single plate. And and it's so many things. I go to the kitchen every day. I'm the type of doctor that goes to the kitchen, see what's cooking, see what is literally uh, what they're preparing, what foods are in season. I go to the market at least twice a month to look around and to see what we can offer you. So it's all about Biocare. And this is a hospital. So intravenous access is 24/7. We can do a lot of things for you. We can do a lot of things for you, for your system, and for also for cleansing and replenishing your intestinal flora. Once you choose to Biocare, everything is possible. We'll be with you next week.